I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor, before you go too far, some citizens' comments back onto the agenda.
The end of the meeting. Sure. Ann, could you just let the record show that all 7 commissioners are present, please? And correspondence.
There was one piece of correspondence that's related to the final item on the agenda, and we'll discuss that when we get to that item regarding the submission of the nominating petitions for commissioners' approval.
All right, great. Thank you very much. We're going to move right into consent. Consider a vote of the commissioners to accept the consent agenda.
Mayor, not all the minutes are finished, so what I'd like to do is make a motion to vote on the following 15 sets of minutes. And the dates are, of course, in the agenda, but I'll read them here. Executive sessions held on April 24th, 12:30 p.m., April 24th, 1:15 p.m., May 17th, 2019, May 17th, May 24th, June 3rd, June 10th, regular meeting held on May 17th, special meetings held on April 24th at 12:30 p.m., April 24th, 1:15 p.m., May 17th, May 24th, June 3rd, and June 10th, special budget workshop meeting held on February 15th, and a workshop meeting held on April 9th.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the 15 sets of minutes as listed by Commissioner Mills. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. City Manager's report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I know the city secretary put the street aid expenditure in here, and here it is. Street aid expenditure, there is one dated June 14th, 2019, in the amount of $9,268.07.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve street aid expenditures of $9,268.07. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
In the past 2 to 3 weeks, bushes and shrubs were removed in the median at the first crosswalk after the circle. This was related to a line of sight issue causing a safety hazard. The work has been completed. The area was just dressed up last weekend. After having met with DelDOT this past winter and receiving permission from DelDOT to replace traffic logic traffic calming devices in the vicinity of 151 Columbia Avenue, the city will be contracting with a private business to install these possibly as soon as next week. The speed devices should significantly slow traffic to 10 to 15 miles an hour. Handrails were recently installed.
Excuse me, just City Manager, how many of those speed devices will be actually put on the road?
When?
Yes, when and how many? I'm sorry if I missed that.
There's a configuration of, I believe when it's done, it's going to be 2 of them.
Okay.
And
So it's just in one location, or is it in multiple locations?
no, just one location
Oh,
across
okay.
both lanes.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, thank you. That's helpful.
Handrails were installed at the information kiosk on the Boardwalk at the Delaware Avenue restrooms, and these were needed for safety purposes and to provide assistance for those in need of them. The parking department continues to work through the implementation of the new Luke Cosmo pay stations that were installed and the LPR technology. The enforcement crews continue to be trained as needed, and when issues arise, they are quickly addressed. The LPR enforcement vehicle is working well. Staff continues to hand out one warning for those who back into parking spaces rather than park head-in. And staff have started to issue warnings for people who forget to include letters or transpose a number or two when entering their license plate using the new pay stations. Many Delaware tags, as you know, have the letters PC. Some folks are just putting in the numbers, and we're giving them warnings for that. To date, the parking staff have issued 339 warnings for overtime parking and 266 warnings for back-in parking. These numbers don't include the verbal warnings that we give on a daily basis. And the parking meter revenue so far, I will continue to give these on a monthly basis. So this past May compared to last May, this past May compared to May 2019, the revenue increased approximately $82,000. The Rehoboth Beach Police Department 911 Center was recently approved for reaccreditation as an emergency medical dispatch center of excellence by the Board of Accreditation of the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch. Dispatch supervisor has already filed for fire accreditation and should have that answer by the end of the month, and she plans on filing for police accreditation this fall. If successful, the city's 911 center will become the first tri-accredited center in the state of Delaware. The City of Rehoboth Beach will be partnering with the Youth Conservation Corps this summer from June 24 through August 16th. The program provides a summer job for teen and young adults, 14 to 16. They focus on conservation and park projects. 2 teams, each with approximately 5 members, will be on site assisting with park and bench cleanup, mulching, weeding, and other projects. The Youth Conservation Corps staff are paid by the state parks. Each team comes with their own transportation and a team leader. Although no supervision is necessary, the city will be providing partner liaisons from Mr. Miller and our city arborist, Ms. Lingo, to ensure the teams have what they need to get started and to be sure the team leader understands the projects and expected outcomes. The teams will start Thursday, June 27th, and work every other Thursday from approximately 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. As I mentioned at last meeting, and I'll mention just a brief update for Munis. As part of our new municipal enterprise resource planning software, the Munis platform, we now have a public-facing web portal called Citizen Self-Service. When implemented last year, the public now has the ability to pay general billing invoices and utility bills since we went live last year with those particular modules. We now have completed the implementation of the permitting and code enforcement and business licensing pieces of this, and we are planning to provide the public the ability to search active business licenses and building permits through the Citizen Self-Service portal beginning July 1. Business licenses and building permits that are published through the portal will start from May 2019, last month, and go forward. We do not have the capability of pushing this information out through the old system, and that will not be published. Payments for business licenses and permits will not be available on the Citizen Self-Service at this time, mainly because of the necessity the city requires for the documents that folks have to turn in. So you will be able to retrieve business licenses, building permits, but the payments for those will not be up just yet. We expect the property tax information and payment processing to be made available on the Citizen Self-Service in mid-July. The tax bills will be going out with this new implementation for the July billing. Remaining work for the restroom renovations on the Boardwalk include placing of 4 shower towers, 6 drinking fountains, and replacing the window at the information kiosk. And volleyball lights have been replaced, and they're now operational at the beach at Baltimore Avenue. You'll recall these were removed when AT&T constructed their pole for the small cell site antenna, and it was determined when those lights were taken down, they were too deteriorated and needed to be replaced. An introductory meeting was held earlier today. Director of Public Works and other staff and I attended that meeting with the U.S. Army Corps to kick off the planning process of the development of Silver Lake and Lake Comegys Management Plan. The Corps will develop a scope of work, citing priorities, and send to the city within the next 2 months. This week, staff also met with GHD to develop the protocol for the stormwater sampling to be done this summer. And this is a follow-up to the initial sampling done last year. You'll recall that, to help identify sources of bacteria. It's being paid partially through the Surface Water Matching Planning Grant. This is a $55,000 grant, $27,500 paid for from the city. Stormwater sampling and grease trap inspections are scheduled for July and August, and a public outreach is planned to all restaurants that will be inspected, and a pre-meeting is planned for city staff to meet with restaurants to explain the sampling project and answer their questions. I think that's important so we get everyone together and they're all on the same page. This coming month, actually next week, Mr. Miller will be attending the hazard mitigation planning training sponsored by DEMA, and Mr. Williams will be scheduled for hurricane awareness training, also sponsored by DEMA. The Utility Rate Working Group has rescheduled its meeting, and that important meeting is next Thursday, June 27th at 9 a.m. right here in the Commissioner's Room. With the expectation of large crowds for our celebration of July 4th on July 3rd, the city's contractor will be placing 48 temporary restrooms at various locations for the fireworks display. They'll be placed north and south of town, along with the additional restrooms at Delaware and Baltimore Avenues. So we have 48 porta potties being delivered early morning of July 3rd, and they'll be removed the next day on July 4th. 5 of these portable toilets are ADA compliant. That's new for the city. We're trying this out. We have crowds, and we have individuals who are not able or don't want to walk to the public restroom, so they make it inconvenient for folks who live at the end of the streets. So this is a project that we're trying out this year. Starting on Monday, June 24th through Friday, June 28th, the contractor will be performing nighttime work painting the bridge. Construction crews will coordinate and assist with traffic movement as needed, and we'll have updates posted on the city's website and also on social media. Last week, the city installed 14 Big Belly solar-powered compacting containers. They're strategically located along Baltimore, Wilmington, and First Street. And Grove Park and Stokely Street Park will soon have receptacles for both refuse and recycling. This is a project where the city is looking to spend approximately $134,000 over 5 years, spread out over 5 years. And we're also attempting to secure grant funding for these as well. And as I said, the fireworks display will be on July 3rd this year. Zambelli Fireworks will start that at about 9:30 from the beach. Thank you.
Sharon, a question on your last item, because I get asked this over and over and over again. Why do we do the fireworks on the 3rd to celebrate July 4th? I know there's a reasonable answer, but I just can't believe how many times I get asked that.
So the staff meets very early in the year with our emergency service responders, police department, the fire department, the ambulance crew, DelDOT, and everyone who is involved in that evening, mainly for, I'll say, issues of staff not being available in other areas, and because July 4th, up and down Route 1 is celebrated in other municipalities, the crews are going there, and they were not able to accommodate Rehoboth anymore on July 4th.
Is there a conscious effort to rotate across the neighboring beach communities in terms of who gets the actual 4th of July and who gets the 3rd and so on?
So we do not do that, but in speaking with my colleagues, if you will, in Dewey and other municipalities, they're not willing to change. The sponsors for those events are not willing to change that.
Yeah, in the way you look at it, I mean, Rehoboth has the largest fireworks display down here on the coast, you know, up to Lewis, at Broadkill, whatever, down to Bethany, Fenwick. And typically we use, because of the large size of our display and the number of people that are in town, from a safety perspective, we've got to have many police, many fire people. And so we have, I don't know, it's a couple hundred that come from outside of town that,
Everywhere.
you know, bring their trucks, their cars in here, but for more safety situations than anything else. And then, you know, so that all these smaller towns can have their own people locally. So it's really so that we're manned efficiently, because if we all had it on July 4th, it would be mayhem. And, you know, in the past, in the last number of years, we've been doing it on a Sunday night, whether it's been the 2nd or 3rd or 4th. This year, Sunday night, I think, is the 31st, and the next Sunday is the 7th, and so it just made a lot of sense in the middle of the week. Yeah.
I have a few quick things for the city manager. One is, I just wanted to share my experience with visitors. The LPR system seems to be working fine. However, the one thing I've heard over and over again is reference to head-in parking when required. All the signs and the parking meters that in those areas say head-in parking when required, whether they're in a parallel parking zone area or an angled or perpendicular area. And they've asked me, well, head-in parking when required, when is it required? And I just thought it was kind of a funny question that might be worth following up with the court, because I would think if somebody goes to court and says, nothing told me when required is, I would think she would have to give lenience on that thing. So anyhow, that just a curiosity and note. The Big Belly, I noticed all the press releases say 135,000, 134,000, but we only budgeted 35,000. So now I understand what the discrepancy is there. That these cost us 35 so far this year, and you're planning to do it for four more times. The other thing, I'm not even sure you're aware. I ran into Donna and Max the other day, and I indicated that I couldn't go online and access the real estate assessments anymore. You know, I know a lot of constituents that enjoy going online and seeing what their property is valued at, what our neighbors' properties are valued at, and it was not being up to date, apparently, because we changed vendors, and so they took it offline. So I would say and promote that we need to get that fixed and back online. And then the last thing, you know, is just a recurring thing that I'll keep pushing for while I have a vote, and I'll keep pushing for from the audience that I'd like to see the building permits, tree permits, demo permits all put online in addition to the real estate licenses that we have, because I think that program's working very well. So.
And we will have them online, Commissioner, as part of the business license rollout.
Very good. Thank you.
Anything else? City Solicitor, any report?
The only thing I wanted to mention, I think all the commissioners are aware that if you recall, but this, I guess for the benefit of the public, if you recall, this body adopted ordinances or an ordinance to make clear that the a prior ordinance requiring a limitation of one main dwelling per lot be applicable during a certain time period. This week, there was a case filed by the Ocean Bay Mart folks against the city seeking a declaratory judgment from the court that that ordinance should not apply to their application, and also seeking an equitable estoppel and a vested rights claim on the same issue. So there's more Ocean Bay Mart litigation is proceeding. That's all.
And I think we'll have that, available online next week sometime for
Oh, good.
for the public to see, yeah. Which is what we've been doing for almost everything, anything public relative to Ocean Bay Mart. Ann's been organizing and putting online, right?
Okay, good, thank you. It's on now. All right, we'll move right into committee reports. Animal issues, anything, Dick?
The next meeting of the Animal Issues Committee is on July 9th at 2 PM. The agenda is already out on the website. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, anything on Bandstand?
No, just that we will be voting tonight to add 2 members to the group, given 2 individuals that left. Thank you.
Thank you. Boardwalk Beach, anything?
No, we're working on a report. The last thing we worked on was bicycle routing and bicycle access to the very north tip of the boardwalk, and we're in the process of finalizing that report. You should likely get that at the next regular meeting. In the meantime, I think we're going to take a little hiatus for a meeting or 2 and meet again in late summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing from the Law Oversight. Nobody's in the audience. Mayor's Tree Committee, please.
We are moving forward with best and final offers on the commemorative tree that the commissioners have heard of a number of times. It's going to be located in the main lobby under the seal of the city. It will be a sculpture, and you might remember it will be the one that folks can buy leaves that will be attached to it to commemorate a life event or anything important that they would like to contribute. So we'll be coming back shortly after the award is made to let you know a little bit more about what it will look like.
Great, thank you. I don't think there's anything from Parking Advisory, and I don't think there was anything from Streets and Transportation that I heard of. I know they've got meetings coming up soon. Carol, anything from your perspective, please?
Yes, thank you. Just a quick update. Oops, sorry. Just a quick update that all the publications are in. Everything came in on time and on schedule. We're fully staffed for the summer, ready to service. And I wanted to say a special thank you to the City of Rehoboth Beach for all the extra assistance that we got. Well, we wanted to say thank you to the EMS and the firemen and the policemen and the military. It was just very heartwarming to have that support and see so many of you down there. So thank you.
For the red, white, and blue.
Yes, I'm sorry. Beach goes red, white, and blue, and we did.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Great event.
Thank you, Carol. Anything Main Street, Pat, that they had? Okay.
Quickly on the Senior Center, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Because people have asked, the Board of Directors of our Cape Henlopen Senior Center meets the second Tuesday at 9 a.m. every month. It's a public meeting. The public is welcome to come and listen, learn, and participate.
Thank you, Dick. Appreciate that. All right, we're going to move right into old business A, which we have on the schedule for consideration and possible vote on a path forward for the city concerning the Grove Park Canal Access Project.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I recommend tabling this agenda item. The city staff and I have been in touch with Matt Spong a couple times during the past 2 weeks. And based on information provided to you at the last meeting regarding the needs and wants from city staff and some clarifications, it's, I'll say, time and labor intensive, so I just recommend tabling this until your July 8th meeting when Mr. Spong can have everything together, so there's a conclusive results for you to be able to hear.
And just to follow up on that, Mr. Spong sent something out to the commissioners late this afternoon, kind of quantifying the things that he's going after to have prepared for the July 8th workshop meeting, working with the city staff. And with that in mind, we'll put this on the July 8th workshop as old business. And then what I'd like to do is also schedule a special meeting right after the meeting, if in fact we do vote on it, as we were scheduled to vote on it today. So we have that at the same time, not at the exact same time on the regular agenda, but directly afterwards, if that's all right.
Were my asks passed on to Matt, do you know?
Which
I
one?
emailed this week that I was waiting for something that had the total cost on it, the grant.
Yes,
and all
yes,
that.
that's part of the package, and we'll supply that to all the commissioners. And that's part of the reason, too, we didn't have those costs yet.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he sent out an email with
I
like
just
2
want to make
pages.
sure it was
Yeah.
passed on.
Yeah, that's on there.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, sir.
Walter Burnett.
On this agenda item.
Pardon?
On this agenda item.
The city arborist gave some input at the last meeting, nothing against the arborist, but she had a discussion about an option of clearing the bank all the way to the Canal Bridge. Have you folks asked for that as an option?
That's something we'll probably discuss at the July 8th meeting.
Okay, and then at a July regular meeting?
July 8th workshop meeting. We've postponed the discussion of this today to that meeting.
Other discussion about, it's got some significance if you move it to the north.
Yes, and our engineer is working with Matt Spong on that. Thank you.
That there is a consensus to move forward, to expend money to get those answers for that next meeting. You start talking about the engineers and people, how much $1,000 a foot for bulkheading, stuff like that, moving up to the bridge, however many 100 feet it is. And you said you'd have it back for the commissioners. The public would like to have it also.
And that's what they're working on. We're going to move on to B, which is consideration and possible vote to approve the additional borrowing of 58% of $3 million, approximately $1,740,000 from Sussex County to perform the needed work for Phase 3 of the wastewater treatment plant project. And again, remember, we were discussing this at our last meeting, and we were going to bring this to a vote today.
So there is a resolution in the package that's been prepared. I'll read it by title, just if you get to a point where you want a motion, this would be the resolution to adopt. So the title is Resolution of the Mayor and Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach to proceed with the issuance of debt obligations of up to $1,740,000 of the previously authorized up to $52,500,000 to finance wastewater treatment plant reliability and process improvements. Mr. Williams spoke of these improvements last meeting.
And I would just have Mr. Williams, Director of Public Works, speak to this just briefly.
That's what you get for coming to the meeting.
Yeah, right, I should have stayed upstairs. Is there a question, or, I mean, we talked about it last time. The original offer we talked about was $3 million of added scope. We were hoping they would agree to the 50-50 split, 0% interest for the 10-year payback. County council countered with we'll lend you the extra money, but at the 2017 agreed percentages of 58.42, and then charges 2% on the additional scope of the $3 million. So our part of that $3 million was $1.74 million, and we'll pay 2% interest on that over the 10 years.
Thank you, and that's the reason for the amended or the additional resolution.
Yeah, and if you all remember, we've already passed a resolution for $6 million, that we were going to pay $3 million, that the county is going to lend us that $3 million at 0% for 10 years. This is a similar structured loan, although with this situation, there will be a 2% interest rate. It will be over 10 years, and it will be us paying the 58% and the county paying the 42%, which are basically what we use now on the agreement with the county.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution of the mayor and commissioners of the city of Rehoboth Beach to proceed with the issuance of debt obligations of up to $1.74 million of the previously authorized up to $52.5 million to finance wastewater treatment plant reliability and process improvements. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin. All right. Going to move right into C, which is consideration and possible vote on amendments to section 7417, 120-14, 208-4, 208-5, relating to signs on public property, business licenses, and property maintenance to convert infractions from criminal to civil offense. You do have it in your packet that the city solicitor has worked with Dennis Jenny to put together. Remember, Dennis was here last time, and actually these are some of the things that he proposed a while ago, and we just updated that, and I'll leave that to the solicitor.
Right, so these are, you've converted things in the past from criminal to civil. These are ones that Mr. Jenny thought were additional ones that would be appropriate to change. They're basically helps him with enforcement. There's the conversions would be for in section 74 signs on public property, so he can enforce improper located signs on public property. Second, under section 120 is business licenses. So if somebody is doing business without a license or infraction of that sort, he has authority to enforce it without involving a police officer. The next is violations of the property maintenance code. So grass too tall or garbage being strewn around, those certain things. He'd have the authority to enforce those. So those are ones, there's one more that you're gonna see coming your way, which is the next agenda item. It deals with a zoning matter though, so that one has to be scheduled for a public hearing. These are ones that can be changed today with this ordinance.
Any questions?
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve an ordinance to amend the municipal code of the city of Rehoboth Beach by amending Chapter 74, Section 74-17, Chapter 120, Section 120-14, and Chapter 208, Sections 208-4 and 208-5 relating to signs on public property, business licenses, and property maintenance to convert criminal infractions to civil offenses. We have a motion and a second on the table to approve that amendment. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay. If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Passes. All right. Now we can go right into D, which is, as the city solicitor mentioned, is the last portion of the amendment changes that the Dennis Jenny had proposed, which is consideration of possible vote on resolution to set a public hearing on the ordinance to amend 270-69 relating to signs and converting infractions from criminal to civil offenses. And again, as the city solicitor mentioned, this we have to set a public hearing first, and then we would put this on the agenda at that public hearing.
And just to recall that this section, to the extent you go forward to the public hearing and ultimately approve it, the only thing that you'd be changing in the zoning code is the enforcement of the sign provisions, the sign ordinance. Everything else in the zoning code would remain a criminal infraction.
So what date would you like to do this?
I would suggest we have to be the next regular meeting, which would be the July 19th, is that it? Or no? July 8th, it would be July.
It's either the 19th or the 26th. Is it the 19th? July, yeah, 19th.
July 19th, that's right, because the workshop is on the 8th. So is that enough time?
Enough time. So I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution by the commissioners proposing that a public hearing be held on the 19th of July, AD 7 PM in this room, on the subject of amending Section 270-69 relating to the conversion of violations of Article 7, signs from criminal to civil offenses.
Second.
Okay, excuse me, is 7 PM accurate? Doesn't appear that it is.
That'll be,
No,
3 PM?
3 PM.
I would
it would
amend,
be 3 PM.
I would
Right.
amend mine to 3 o'clock PM. Thank you for catching that. With the second
Second.
amend also.
Okay, we have a motion and a second amended to include 3 PM for the meeting on July 19th. A resolution by the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach proposing that a public hearing be held on that date on the subject of amending Section 270-69 relating to the conversion of violations of Article 7, signs from criminal to civil offenses. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Glenn? There's a blank in here that indicates we need to add a date. That date would be the 19th of July, so that it's subject to the pending ordinance doctrine. I just wanted to make sure we mentioned that on the record also.
I'm sorry, this is, we're having a.
The resolution on the,
On the
there
civil,
needs to
yeah.
be a date at
Yes,
the end of it?
Yeah, that's right, on page 2, 19.
Oh, yeah,
July
he's
19th,
Two
insert
fill in the blank
Yep,
areas.
two fill in the blanks,
He's
yeah.
written that on his page.
Yep. Got it.
Okay, we have that on the table, and that's been discussed. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, we're going to move right into new business A, which is a presentation and an update on recycling in Delaware. And Commissioner Mills had asked to put this on the agenda, and I think we may have a presentation.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Mayor. We had a little. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. The mayor was attending a Sussex County dinner the other day, and I gave a little update on recycling, and I asked if I could kind of duplicate it and maybe expand it just a little bit here. So I'd like to share with you. I would like to start off with letting you know that I do serve on a state recycling council, and yet I am here wearing my commissioner's hat to talk about recycling. I just wanted to share with you a couple things and make a couple points on recycling in the state of Delaware. You all may have read about 1.5 years ago that China started a national sword program, they called it, and they started cracking down on contamination of recyclables. China has been the #1 receiver of recyclables worldwide. So wherever people are in the world, they want to get rid of their recyclables. They were sending them largely to China. But China cracked down about 1.5 years ago. And it was all in the papers that, there's what's going to happen to recycling. I just want to share with you a couple things. One is at the Boardwalk and Beach Committee meeting we were talking about recycling, and we had a man come to the meeting, and he said recycling's dead. If you read that News Journal article, it's dead. It's not going to happen again. That we should give up on recycling. Well, since that time, Delaware continues to be a leader, is a leader, and continues to be a leader in recycling. Now, more recently, like within the last 6 months, China has said, whoops, we don't even want your recycling anymore. It's still too contaminated. We don't want it, period. Well, that got everybody hustling worldwide on where to send their recycling. Now, recycling in Rehoboth, we've always done a good job. We've embraced it. You can see our little logos on the side there. This is a condominium that does it. This is a single-family home. These people up in Westchester, I guess, like our program so much that they bring their recycling down to Rehoboth Beach. So what happened we started hearing about these municipalities started collecting recycling and taking them to landfills out in the West and everything. And largely that's because they don't have markets for that. But in Delaware, I want to share with you that, that everything that we collect in single stream recycling is recycled and sent away. And so we continue to be on the forefront of recycling in the United States. And as you can see there, milk bottles are segregated and separated, and paper and things like that. We've got aluminum cans. Aluminum cans right now happen to be the most valuable commodity of all the products nationwide right now, and we sell them to we, Delaware, sell them to the highest bidder. So aluminum and metal, number one. Plastic, number one and number two, which is long neck bottles, you can see right up here. 1 and 2 plastics are the next positive value market right now. They're sold and recycled throughout the United States, and it happens to be that Coke, Nestle, and Pepsi happen to be one of the biggest purchasers of Delaware recycled bottles. And then, of course, they turn them into other products. Now, the other recyclables, such as items that have labeled and identified as numbers 4 through 7, are baled together rather than segregated, and they're sent to different markets in Ohio. Our mixed paper, we have the different paper products, newspaper, office paper, goes to paper mills down in the South, particularly a lot in Georgia that we give them to. Glass doesn't have a real good value right today, but we send it to Allentown, Pennsylvania, where it's washed and cleaned and sold to make more wine and beer bottles. And then cardboard has some value right now. It's not real expensive to get rid of, but there's 2 domestic markets that make it into more paper products. Right now, recyclers can recycle cardboard, say, 5 to 7 times before it breaks down so much, but they always have to add new fiber to it. So anyhow, the point is that everything in the single stream market is being recycled. I don't know if you all remember, the commissioners, we got a letter from Jennifer not too long ago that indicated, stop it. Why do recycling anymore? Stop investing your money in it. Just throw it in the trash can and that's it. Number one, we just learned that recycling's working. Number two, the Universal Recycling Law, SB 235, doesn't allow us to stop it. If you're a trash provider, you must provide the containers, and if you provide the containers, then you must pick up the recycling. And it saves us money. We have to pay, if we take it to a landfill, we're actually paying, whereas we don't pay to tip the recyclables. The state takes that stuff for free. The other subject real quick is recycling right. This is a statewide program. It's in the first of 3 years, where they're trying to tell everybody what the right way to recycle is. Now, the best thing would be to go Google, look up Delaware Recycles and how to recycle. This has a good brochure that tells you what you can do and what you can't do. And what I wanted to share with you is a couple of things that pictures I've taken around Rehoboth. I'm going to kind of tattletale on ourselves and in hopes that we can do a better job educating ourselves on our website and with people throughout town. But in this recycle bin, you can see there's a hose and there's trash, all kinds of trash. Here's some food in a carry-out container. Here's things in a plastic bag. Plastic bags are no-nos. Up at the material recovery facility, plastic bags float in the air. They contain things. The contents don't come out of them. Particularly the shopping bags melt and they gum up, and when they harden, they stop all the bearings, and you've got to shut down this whole facility to be able to clean it. So plastic bags are a no-no. Again, you can see another plastic bag here in the forefront. That's a black bag. Whenever the material recovery facility sees a black bag, they assume it's trash, that people are trying to sneak and get rid of their trash without paying for it. Of course, that wouldn't happen in Rehoboth, but outside Rehoboth and unincorporators, that does happen. Go through there. There's some hoses. There's some different things that aren't on the recycle list. Here's a quilt. And while there are places out on Route 1 that take your clothing and shoes and everything, they're specifically segregating it for textiles. Remember, our single stream doesn't take that kind of thing. We have those very limited number of items. And here's one of those blue tarps. I guess somebody thought it was plastic or something and thought that would go. And then there's the rest of it's trash there. These are those metal bands that you would wrap around lumber or something. And the interesting thing is, yes, some of these things are recyclable. The metal's recyclable, but at a metal recycling facility or scrapyard. Same thing here. Here's a metal chandelier that somebody's trying to get rid of in the single stream. Again, that could go to a metal scrap dealer, but not in here. Here's some aluminum. That I had a hard time not coming back with my truck and taking the aluminum so that I could make a few dollars on it. And then yard waste, of course, we quote unquote recycle separately. And hazardous waste, fluorescent bulbs, kind of thing. So again, we're trying to eliminate contamination. We've got a good system, and hopefully everybody will look it up and we can make sure that our website's telling people where to go to find out what you can and can't do. But again, my main point was, of course, contamination is an enemy of recycling, but the main point is we can't stop recycling, and it's working in Delaware. That's all. Any questions?
I just have a quick comment. When you mentioned that we had been contacted about why in the world are we paying for recycling when nothing is really being recycled, it was also printed in a publication that I thoroughly enjoy reading, which is the Rehoboth Beach Homeowners Association newsletter. And I think this is a great opportunity for an in-depth follow-up article, since everyone got this and wonders, why are we recycling? Commissioner Mills just gave us a great presentation on why we do this, and I hope to find it in an upcoming newsletter, and thank y'all for doing this.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mills, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention and updating us and getting us to better understand the importance of all of this. A couple of big questions. One is, we are not recycling on in our public areas, the boardwalk, our public streets, our parks. I don't expect you alone to solve that, but it is an issue for us. Do you have any background to give us on the direction that we might be headed?
Off the top of my head, minimal. But what I will share with you is, for instance, the Beach and Boardwalk Committee has talked about it, and we'll pull out our reports. It's not as easy as you think. When we first were talking about recycling on the boardwalk and the beach, for instance, was the exact moment we were talking about a summer and a half ago, about how to get those big trash trucks off the boardwalk. And we figured until we could resolve that for one commodity, trash, we didn't want to put a second commodity of recycling on there so that we would double the number of big trucks on the boardwalk. But now that we've accomplished one thing, maybe we can go back and take a look at that. Also, the city, before everybody here, this time, the city had a grant program through DENREC. So that must have been 15 years ago, I think. They got some money. They did some recycling on the beach and the boardwalk. And we have that report, and we can learn from the report. Basically, I think it was a lot of gaffes that happened, things that just didn't happen right. The trash can was, a blue trash can was co-located with a blue recycle bin, and you didn't know what was what. And I think the big lesson from this report, to abbreviate my response to you, is you've got to have the right coloration of containers. They need to be co-located with trash so that you're making a decision here or here. They need to be labeled properly. They need to be emptied consistently and more frequently than you would think of otherwise, because as soon as you walk up with a piece of trash and you come up to a full trash can and you can see that recycle bin is empty, well, it's going to go into the recycle bin. We know that. I mean, we know that from fact. And I know earlier there was also some problems that our guys were A lot of people putting dirty diapers and things in the recycle bins and everything. I guess they thought they were plastic lined, I don't know. But our public works guys at that time were trying to pick out the contamination and everything, which generally today, and if you understand that that program was maybe 15 years ago, I think even the Boardwalk and Beach Committee members said, those times are a long time ago. We have changed in that period, and people are much more receptive and educated on recycling. So we thought that, yes, it could happen in the right moment and with the lessons learned from that plan. So things can happen, but again, one of the biggest emphases is that when you do that, you're adding a second commodity co-located with your trash cans, so now you have doubled the amount of pickups, double the amount of trash loads in the street, double the amount of recycle pickups and everything. It could work out that your trash collection frequency might go down because you're putting more in the recycle, but if you think about it, the way our program works, every day at 10 a.m., they're at this one, so it really doesn't work with helping reduce the number of runs. They're still going to collect it regardless. Every day they've got to do their route. So that's just kind of
Thank you. Yeah,
about the briefest
understand
response
the
I can give.
complexity at many levels.
Yeah.
However, it is something as a city that we definitely need to continue to take a very serious look at. I'm even wondering, and maybe this is kind of a delicate question, but wondering if under the universal recycling law, if we're not required to be recycling.
No, we're
in
not.
those. We're not, okay. Now, my second question has to do with our local businesses. Under the universal recycling law, whether it's a school or a business, is required to recycle. It's my observation that not all of our businesses are doing that. Is it not being enforced by the state, or do you, and again, I understand there's complexities for businesses, there's expenses, et cetera, but people that walk up and down come to me and say they see a lot of it going in the garbage, and that not all of our businesses have a second dumpster that's dedicated to recycling.
Right. Well, best way I can answer that is universal recycling law requires businesses meaning municipalities, institutions, educational places, all those things, to participate, quote, in a comprehensive recycling program, unquote. That's left to be defined to what we want. If our city comprehensive recycling program is to put a recycle bin in every meeting room in every department, and that's all we do, then that's our comprehensive recycling program. The state doesn't dictate what the other businesses to do or how extensive it is. And yet there's some new rulemaking that is suggesting that they need to do more than the minimum. But it's up to them. And the state's spread thin, frankly, on trying to enforce all this stuff. So really, you hope that the businesses will take the onus on themselves to do it and be proper with it.
Good.
I think one important keynote is that if you segregate recycles, so if you indeed put recycles in a bin that says recycling. We have one down in our foyer downstairs, right? Convention hall foyer. It's for recycling, and next to it's a trash can. If you segregate them, you cannot commingle them again. So our trash truck can't pull up out there, and you stick the trash in there, and then you carry the recycling out and stick it in the same trash truck. It has to be, otherwise, you can say it's a ruse otherwise, you know, so.
Right.
Anything else?
Thank you. Yeah,
had
there's a question back here.
Quick question.
Thanks, Dan, for bringing this up. It's great to hear this news. And I guess my question is.
I need you at the microphone.
Pardon me?
I need you at the microphone.
Donna Mabry, 221 Hickman. The state is talking about discontinuing single-use plastics. And I'm wondering if, what you think the chances are that'll go through. And I'm
Plastic bags.
Yeah, it's just plastic bags. They're not going to include anything else.
Right.
Okay. or I wonder how our business community is open to that, or it seems like if a lot of the food vendors would stop using styrofoam and switch to paper cups again, those would be recyclable and they wouldn't take up so much bulk in the trash and the recycling cans and things like that. But I just wonder, it's just, if the state were to do that, it might help, provide impetus for more recycling throughout town.
Well, I believe the single-use plastic bag is law, I believe. I think this governor
It hasn't been
signed.
signed by the
Hasn't been
governor yet,
signed
but
yet.
it's been
So
passed
so
by
it's
both
coming.
houses.
But it has to do with size of, at least it's a 7,000 square foot business, or if you have 3 businesses, each one 3,000. I can't remember all the details, so it doesn't apply to everybody. But I think you make a good point, and that's a future agenda item could be whether we want to talk about the topics du jour, banning plastic bags, banning plastic straws, and some of those aren't necessarily recycle issues. They're more of a trash issue than anything.
An environmental issue.
Yeah.
Well, we did have a presentation, was it last year, from the fifth grade class of Rehoboth Elementary School, imploring us to think about eliminating plastic straws. So maybe we go back to that well and take another look.
The plastic bag ban will be signed by the governor very soon, before the end of the month. And it will go into effect January 1 of 21.
21.
So there's a grace period, and it is for just the larger businesses, but hopefully that there'll be a trickle-down positive influence on the smaller businesses.
And I think once the state takes the charge, I think more and more people will move into that. I think a number of the restaurants in town have already paid attention to the fifth graders in that they're offering no longer plastic straws, they're paper straws. They're no longer the little swizzle sticks for coffee. It's now the wooden ones. So I think that will happen with time. I know it's happening in other states that they're pushing it hard to, the single-use bags. I think once that happens, and then the grocery stores do it, and then the local people do it, and then I think you'll probably see other businesses taking that step as well.
Well, I just want to mention that the Rehoboth Beach Farmers Market did eliminate plastic bags, and we only use paper there, or there is compostable plastic bags that can be used, but it's been eliminated. So we've started that this year.
And just a note on that, biodegradable are much, much better to use for the environment than compostable. Because the compostable that
fight
go
here.
into our landfills do not compost. They get buried.
All right.
We have one vendor.
Thank you, Stan. That was very helpful.
Thank you, Stan.
Dick, to go to your comment, it's interesting. In Grove Park, there are recyclable cans in Grove Park. And I think most of those are used at the farmer's market. But I know the Chamber does, and I know the Historical Society and Main Street uses them because for their recyclables. And unfortunately, when I take out recyclable paper or bottles that we use at the museum, there's trash in there. And that's the problem is, I think around our parks or even on the street, the boardwalk or even the beach is having a can, as we used to have, or even the blue things that we have, you turn it over, you can put anything in it. I think if this is something that we want to push forward for the future, and I'm not saying tomorrow, but for the future, we should probably look at, as some of these municipalities have, or you go into airports these days and you see a bank of 4 cans, and one's trash, and you can only fit so much in there, and one is newspaper and it's a slit, and one is bottles or cans, and I think that's how you really get people to participate but you have to have the
And labeled very explicitly as to what
and
goes
I
in
think
that slot.
that's a possibility, but again, there's a cost, and I think as time goes on, that's probably something we should think about.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mayor, just on the same topic, we do have our recycling center still open 3 days a week now, and it doesn't have, has folks, coming and using it, but they're not coming in droves, let's say. But we're keeping track of the numbers, and we do have our recycling center open at Oyster House Road. So everyone hopefully will be aware of that.
And just a reminder, that's available to residents as well as local businesses. And I know some of the smaller businesses do use it. They take their cardboard boxes down there. And back to your situation about the commercial establishments recycling, some not doing it. Most of the, if all of the commercial establishments pay their outside vendors for trash, and I think most of them, depending on the size, they also have cans for the recycling, and I think they do a pretty good job.
Good, good. Thank you, Commissioner Mills. You stimulated some very good and important discussion.
Great, thank you. All right, we're going to move into B, consideration and possible vote to approve 2 new members of the Bandstand Convention Hall Special Events Committee. As Commissioner Schlosser mentioned before, do you want to?
Sure. The mayor was kind enough to send out the applications for Kyle Tenike and Richard Green to add these folks to the commission. We had 2 members, Kathy McGinnis and Eddie Sherman, who had to resign. So we're adding these. Would like to add these folks. Just in terms of qualifications, Richard Green worked for Marriott for the majority of his career. And he worked on convention center bookings and expanding marketing for different events for Marriott. So it'd be real cool to have him on this particular committee. And then really interesting person as well, Kyle. Kyle is a photographer, is a small business, but he is also the co-owner of the Mug and Spoon, and he's also a resident here in town. So there's been a lot of discussions about things going on around the bandstand and different activities in that area. So it'd be, we thought it'd be good to, the committee thought it'd be good to have a person who represents a business in that area around the traffic circle. As well as someone who's a resident, both are residents actually, so on our committee. So I would like to move forward and add both these folks to the committee at this time.
Can I get a motion and a
Mayor,
second?
do you want for the 2 new members, or do you want them individually voted on?
I think 2 is fine.
Okay.
unless
Well,
anybody's-
I would make a motion to approve the 2 new members of the Bandstand Convention Hall Special Events Committee.
Second.
Richard Green and Kyle Tenike.
And there's a
Second.
second by Commissioner Burns. We have a motion and a second to approve the appointment of 2 new members to the Bandstand and Convention Hall Special Events Committee, Richard Green and Kyle Tenike. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, the next is consideration and possible vote to adopt an ordinance to amend Section 227-24 of the City Code related to increasing certain fees for the collection of garbage and refuse. City Manager.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, you'll recall during budget discussions, we discussed this and you approved increasing the fees by $25 for each category. It was incorporated in the budget. And this is the amended resolution, the amended ordinance to increase those fees. The bills are going out next week. So the condominiums are going from 250 to, I'm sorry, from 275 to 300. Single-family dwellings, 275 to 300, and rental units, 275 to 300. There is a category for those who use the 6-month seasonal rate, and all of those 6-month seasonal rates will be from $250 to $275. So all of the rates will be increasing just by $25.
Any questions for the City Manager? If not, can I get a motion to approve this ordinance?
Move to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve an ordinance to amend the municipal code of the City of Rehoboth Beach by amending Chapter 227 Section 227-24 relating to fees for residential collection of garbage and refuse. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We're going to move right into D, which is to set the city real estate tax rate for the tax year beginning July 1, 2019, ending June 30th, 2020. I apologize for not having an ordinance in your packet, but I'll leave that for the city solicitor.
Thank you, Mayor. So generally, I prepare these things. I just did not get it in Ann's hands. I do have an ordinance. It's very short. I will read it to you. It's a half a page, and if you have questions, we'll go through it. But it's the typical ordinance that's used each year. So it's titled, "An Ordinance to Establish the Tax on Real Estate and Improvements Thereon within the City of Rehoboth Beach for the tax year beginning July 1st, 2019, and ending June 30th, 2020. Whereas Section 24B1 of the Rehoboth Beach City Charter provides that annually the mayor and commissioners shall establish the rate of tax on real estate, including improvements thereon, per $100 of assessed value. And whereas the mayor and commissioners desire to set the rate of tax on real estate for the tax year beginning July 1, 2019, and ending June 30th, 2020 at 6 cents per $100 of assessed value, be it ordained by the commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach in session met in the manner following to wit. Section 1. The tax on real estate for the tax year beginning July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020 shall be 6 cents per $100 of assessed value. Section 2, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its adoption by the commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach. And that's the entire ordinance.
Any questions for the solicitor?
What was it previously again? Just remind me.
4 cents, I believe.
4 cents per 100.
I normally wouldn't vote on something like this without seeing it, but, well, I think it's a bad precedent, but anyhow.
Just my mistake for not putting it
Well,
in the packet.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance to raise the property tax to 6 cents per $100.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve an ordinance to establish the tax on real estate and improvements therein within the City of Rehoboth Beach for the tax year beginning July 1, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. And now we're going to move right into the meat of our agenda today. The submission of nominating petitions for commissioners' approval to qualifications of candidates for the annual municipal election scheduled for August 10th, 2019. And as everyone knows, there are 6 candidates, and I'll leave that to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, there are 6 candidates. Normally, we just take these in alphabetical order, but since there is one potential candidate with a pending complaint filed against him, we'll just save that one for last and take these out of order. So the first one is Mark J. Betchcall, a resident property owner of the City of Rehoboth Beach, filing 2 nominating petitions for the office of Commissioner on Saturday, June 1st, 2019 at approximately 9:30 a.m. The nominating petitions contain a total of 17 signatures, and the election supervisor, Ms. Moore, verified 16 of the 17 names that are registered voters of the City of Rehoboth Beach.
Okay,
I have a little discussion first. How many commissioners up here know whether they're a resident commissioner or a non-resident? This is a serious question because I for many years have tried to push to formalize a program where we formalized this designation. The charter says that not less than 3 of the commissioners shall be designated resident commissioners. And this is important because there has to be a certain makeup of resident commissioners to non-resident commissioners. And we never do that. And so I think that we need to cross our I's and cross our T's, dot our I's for this meeting.
So to your question, I believe I'm a resident commissioner.
I know, but how many of us are designated residents? I don't know that any of us
But
went through
isn't
that.
the
What does that mean?
designation in the actual petition?
I don't find it in there at all. So I don't know, but my question is, because whether you're filing as a resident or non-resident impacts the judging of your qualifications, we need to know whether you're filing as a resident or a non-resident. And I guess part of me is saying, how important is that for this process this time? Because we have in Commissioner, all the commissioners up here are residents.
And so,
We don't need any residents to fulfill it. In other words, could every one of these applying today just say, well, I'm not asking for qualification as a resident,
I'm qualified
I'm
as a
just-
non-resident.
right? And I mean, that changes how I would judge things, for instance.
Well, I mean, I think in the past, and obviously, as you just mentioned, everyone here is a resident, but in the past, we have had, as you know, up to 3 non-resident commissioners at any given time. And over the years, it's just gotten less and less, especially recently. But I think up until this past year, when Commissioner Sheffer came on board, we had a non-resident. And I think if you go back to the election before, even that one, there were 2. So, I mean, I think it's, the way I read this is that the minimum you can have is 3 resident commissioners. Excuse me, yes. The minimum you can have is 3 resident commissioners, and doesn't say anything about a maximum. And the maximum you could have of the non-resident would be 3.
I guess my point is, for some of these candidates, it's a lot easier to judge them based on whether they're a freeholder or not, because that's black and white. Trying to judge some of these as residents and specifically domiciled here, I think is a harder task.
Well,
I don't know that we as a board, and I'm talking about years and years of boards, have ever properly or vetted
Well,
domiciliaries.
and
And
maybe.
I think that's the most important part of the judgment if we're going to judge somebody that says they're going to be a resident commissioner.
Well, I guess maybe in the future, I don't think this is appropriate this time around. In the future, we can ask each individual petitioner to stand up and say, are they applying as a resident or a non-resident?
Well, I think we need to do that today.
We've done that in the past.
It's already on their checklist.
Bitsy Cochran used to sit out in the audience and stand up and ask everybody, and
Well,
for
I mean,
the longest
and-
time
and I-
that happened. But
You're entitled, I would think, as we get the motions, to ask. But I think it's pretty much so in the documents that have been filed
It
with
is in the
Donna.
documents that were sent out by Sharon.
Yeah. I mean, they're in the documents.
Yeah, there's
that Sharon
verification
sent
of
out to the-
everybody's status.
I don't see in the documents that I received, unless I overlooked it, I got the voter registration card, I got a property card, I got their partition, but I don't see where it
So the
says.
driver's
Check off
license.
for a permanent resident.
And the driver, Donna Moore goes by the driver's license.
Well, see, forgive me, this is a difficult one for me because I've been to so many of them, I guess. And I guess I'm upset with myself in part and all the rest of us for not formalizing this process and doing a better job so we didn't get to this sticking point. But the driver's license, she may use that, but that doesn't mean it's proper. And I'll tell you, during, Glenn, you'll remember, it was in your early years. Here we are down in the basement commissioner's room certifying people, and we had one commissioner named Dennis, or potential commissioner candidate, that claimed he was a full-time resident and domiciled here, and his driver's license was Washington, D.C. And then we had another candidate named Dave who said he's domiciled here, and his license was New York City. So really, what validity does the driver's license have? The only way I can see And I don't think it's too late to do it for this meeting, to verify residency and domiciliary is to pick something that's universal, that applies to all of them so that it's fair. And that would be taking a look at their, not us looking at, but verifying that they are indeed domiciliary based on their federal return or a
I mean,
Delaware return.
Again, if these people, the people of Rehoboth are willing to vote for these people, I think we can believe anything from these people of what they say. So why don't we just ask them tonight? If that makes you feel any better, it would make, it doesn't, you know.
I'm glad you brought this up because I was trying to figure out exactly what am I going to approve. Because if I'm taking things at face value, which I have no reason not to, it begs the question, what is the due diligence that's done, if any, on what I have in front of me? So maybe somebody can address that. What is the due diligence?
Well, again, it's customary, and as far as I know, in every year that Donna Moore has been doing this, she looks for the requirements that you have before you. Ms. Moore is not the individual that actually approves. The charter says the commissioners approve that. So Ms. Moore is just the taker of the information from the petitioner and the potential candidate, and then puts all of that forward to the commissioners to approve. So that's her role in this, and you know, all the information that you have before you is what's collected.
And I have no problem with Donna. I think she does a fantastic job, but I think it's the onus is on the commissioners to get the
Absolutely.
process right. And I'm hoping that beyond tonight, that there's a conversation on how to correct.
Well, and I think basically we go through this process every year. People put in their petitions, and the way I look at each of these 6 petitions is each and every one of these people has done what we asked them to do within the charter. And that leaves it up to the commissioners to make a decision of, do you approve of what you read or not approve of what you read?
And I guess what I can offer is that generally, I think you should take it as face value, what you see on the paper, because generally the campaigns of each of the candidates are looking at each other, and to the extent there's a question, it oftentimes gets put in front of you through that mechanism. The other thing to keep in mind is that earlier this year, you did have a charter amendment approved by the General Assembly, and that charter amendment included a new definition of domicile. So you have something at least to base that decision of domicile on anyways, and I'll read that to you. So it says, as used herein, resident shall mean a natural person residing and domiciled in the city of Rehoboth Beach for a period of at least 30 days immediately preceding the date of the election. Now remember, candidates are a little bit different. This is just the general section. Then it says, as used herein, domicile shall mean the place where a person has their true, fixed, permanent home and principal establishment, and to which, whenever the person is absent, the person has the intention of returning. So
I'd rather have it say, and as evidenced by,
A
because I
driver's
still
license
think
and a
this is
this and a-
fluffy and open for interpretation.
Well, I mean, based on the paperwork we've received, I mean, self-reporting, like for the 6 candidates that we have, 4 are residents and 2 are non-residents. And that's self-reported on their voter card.
So let me ask a question about that. And I'm not trying to be thick or problematic. I'm looking at Mr. Bechtel's voter registration. And there's a line on here that says date property was purchased. And it's answered by Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, zip code 19971, which is just a continuation of the address from the line above. So what I'm only trying to ask is, this question is not answered on the voter registration form. Is it not important?
The freeholder status, is that
Well,
what you're saying?
Yeah.
All I'm asking is, if you give somebody a form and it's not complete, Maybe we don't care. It's what I'm asking. It isn't complete. It is accidental, I'm quite certain. So,
On the tax form.
It's on the next page too, the verification, so
okay, so on this next page,
in that case.
where is the answer to that question? Date property was purchased is where on here? I don't mean to be,
It's in Donna's
Effective
files,
10/3.
though.
Wait,
2007.
on the property sheet, on the right side.
yes,
Dead center.
there's a date, I see it.
Effective.
Effective. I don't know what effective
I
means.
believe, I'm interpreting it as that's the effective date of him
Okay, I'll go with that.
purchasing.
I'll go with that if that's what it is.
That's it.
That's all I was asking.
The legal text says owner occupied. That's the other thing, too, that I would think would be helpful.
I see it. Got it.
And when I.
Thank you.
When I registered to vote in the state of Delaware, I think I just gave them my driver's license.
Yeah, I think I did too. Yeah,
And, now, I could have lived in Washington DC and just decided to vote in Delaware. But I could have been domiciled in DC, and so how's the state of Delaware now?
exactly.
I mean, it's just, I think we have to, it's like self-evaluation. We have to go with what we have in front of us unless there is some reason for us not to feel that way. But again, I look at these people and I think I've met every one of them. And this is a small town and I believe every one of them and everyone that, what they say on their application. And unless there's something that I'm missing, I will believe them.
And as far as you know, have we ever, we've always used that kind of criteria for approving these as a commission, and that is looking at the self-certification and using that to vote on
And Donna
the
goes
slate.
through
Okay.
and fills out all the details or digs into the details of the records that we have on. Are you registered here? What's your driver's license say? What, on the property? Is your name on the property? So on and so forth.
Okay.
So, with that in mind, you
Would you
already
like me to start over again?
start over again, just to get everybody familiar with where we are. Please.
Mark J. Betchkall, a resident property owner of the city of Rehoboth Beach, filed 2 nominating petitions for the office of commissioner on Saturday, June 1, 2019, at approximately 9:30 a.m. The nominating petitions contain a total of 17 signatures. Ms. Moore certified and verified 16 of the 17 names that are registered voters of the city of Rehoboth Beach.
Can I get a motion and a second if there are no more further questions on Mr. Betchkal?
Well, I'm going to have more discussions, maybe before the motion. If I read the cards right, he's a freeholder, which means he qualifies as a non-resident. So there he qualifies, but if he's running for a resident designation, which again, I don't see other than in the voter's card. But
Yeah.
but that,
Yeah.
so if he's running for a resident position, then what is the evidence that he is resident and domiciled? And I'm going to try to answer the question, and that's on the voter's card. It says his address is 98 Sussex, and that he's a permanent resident, and that he's a freeholder, and the address, the 2008, and then the property card, again, has that effective date, owning property since 2007. So the way I guess my process is that I would believe that he qualifies both as a non-resident and a resident.
So can I just step back with that for a moment? The whole premise of as I have understood this over time, of being a resident or a non-resident commissioner was, as a non-resident, generally speaking, the non-resident people felt like you had their back, if you will, So, and I don't think you make a choice as, oh, I'm going to file as a non-resident or I'm going to file as a resident. You either are one or the other. And typically, voters vote for you sometimes based on that, sometimes not. But I think that that's really the whole premise of it. I'm not so sure, you know, we need to slice and dice it any further. Just my
I
opinion.
mean,
but-
you know, I agree with that because I remember, I've been in a couple of elections and hearing the same thing, that, you know, when you sit down and speak with somebody that lives out of town, they're not registered to vote, and you're running as a non-resident commissioner, they're like, oh, gee, I'm glad somebody is looking out for similar rights. And then the same thing, those same people said, when I file as a resident, they're like, okay, I'm not registered to vote, but it's good to have somebody that lives in town so I can call and know these things. So I think those are very good points. So, is that it for you? All right, can I get a motion and a second to approve Mark Betchkol's petition to run for, as a resident commissioner?
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a
I'll second.
second. We have a motion and a second to approve Mark Betchkol. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next.
Charles G. Garlow, a resident property owner of the city of Rehoboth Beach, filed a nominating petition for the office of Commissioner on Monday, June 3rd, 2019, at approximately 2:08 p.m. The nominating petition contains 19 signatures. Ms. Moore verified 17 of the 19 names that are registered voters of the city of Rehoboth Beach.
Any discussion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve Charles Garlow as his petition to file as a resident commissioner. Any further discussion?
Well, help me verify that he meets the criteria for a resident, that he's residing and lived here more than 6 months, correct? Correct. Okay.
Okay, let's go back. We have a motion and a second to approve Charles Garlow as his petition to run as a resident commissioner. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Susan M. Gay, a non-resident property owner of the city of Rehoboth Beach, filed 2 nominating petitions for the office of Commissioner on Monday, June 3rd, 2019, at approximately 3:50 p.m. The nominating petitions contain a total of 18 signatures. Ms. Moore verified 18 names that are registered voters of the city of Rehoboth Beach.
So she's running as a non-resident, and the criteria there is being a freeholder, and according to the property card and the voter registration card, she is a freeholder, correct?
Okay. Can I get a motion and a second to approve Susan Gay as petition?
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Susan Gay's petition to run as a non-resident commissioner. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Gary A. Glass, a non-resident property owner of the city of Rehoboth Beach, filed a nominating petition for the office of Commissioner on Monday, June 3, 2019, at approximately 4:00 p.m. The nominating petition contains 25 signatures. Ms. Moore verified 23 names. 2 of the names were not counted because they had already signed 2 petitions.
Well, I would have the same comments as before. He's running as a non-resident. The qualification needs to be that he is a freeholder, and the cards indicate that he is a freeholder.
Okay.
I would make a motion to approve qualifications of Gary Glass
Second.
as a non-resident.
We have a motion and a second to approve Gary Glass as a non-resident. His petition is a non-resident commissioner. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Suzanne G. Good, a resident property owner of the city of Rehoboth Beach, filed a nominating petition for the office of Commissioner on Wednesday, May 29th, 2019, at approximately 3:45 p.m. The nominating petition contains a total of 17 signatures. Ms. Moore verified 13 names that are registered voters of the city of Rehoboth Beach.
Well, she's running as, Suzanne's running as a resident, therefore our qualification judgments are relative to residency. And her card indicated that she's been in the area for longer than a period of 6 months, qualifies there. So then question is she domiciled here? And I think her card I don't have in front of me, but it indicated that she's been there for over a year, I believe.
Right.
All right? Very good.
Any further? If not, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve
Second.
qualifications of Suzanne Good as a resident commissioner.
And we have a motion and a second to approve Suzanne Good as a resident commissioner, her petition. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And Edward J. Shanowski, a resident of the city of Rehoboth Beach, filed a nominating petition for the office of Commissioner on Monday, June 3, 2019, at approximately 3:38 p.m. The nominating petition contains 15 signatures. Ms. Moore verified 15 names that are registered voters of the city of Rehoboth Beach.
Do you want to take this or you want me to take this?
Sure. So what I can mention is that there's been two challenges to this particular potential candidate, filed, one by Mr. Patterson and one by Mr. Welch. Both challenges call into question the residency status and the domicile status of this particular candidate. So it is for you all to take up that question. I understand that the candidate did want to make a statement here. I think it's appropriate that he do so since there's been a filing. So I think do that now, and I wouldn't expect any rebuttal because there's been, the challenge has been made, and now is an appropriate time to hear from the candidate. I think the candidate also did provide a written response earlier today that you all have received.
Right.
Yeah,
and
we just got that
I'd
today.
like to have a note first. The Mr. Walsh, I don't have that.
Welch?
I don't either.
Welch.
That was,
Let me see if I can find it, because it was a paragraph long. I think it was
Yeah.
short.
I don't recall.
maybe it didn't go
I
there.
don't recall receiving it.
No, I didn't either.
Didn't
I
receive it.
received one from Brian Patterson. And while we're waiting, we received correspondence. I want to acknowledge from Jay Legree, former commissioner. And then, you're right, we received today a response from Ed himself.
Yep.
But I don't see, if you can find Mr. Welsh, and it's only a
can,
paragraph,
because
I'd
Don-
appreciate you reading it.
I will right now, because Donna forwarded this to the candidate, so see if I can find.
Do you know if Mr. Welsh is a resident and a voter?
His address is in the city, I know. I don't know if he's a voter. I'm assuming he probably is.
Yeah, it's that one. Okay, so it's
What's the address that he gives you?
the address is 315 Stokely Street. And it says, and this is really blurry and small, but it was sent to the city on June 15, 2019. Dear Mr. McDowell, Mr. Coons, and Ms. Lynn, I'm writing to you because I am not sure exactly who is responsible to ensure that candidates for the office of Commissioner in Rehoboth Beach are qualified and eligible to stand in the municipal election this coming August. Candidate Edward, and I can never pronounce it correctly, Shanowski?
Yes.
Claims to be a resident of the Rehoboth Beach, but it appears that he does not qualify as a bona fide resident. I'm not questioning his involvement in the community. I know he volunteers for many things, but like many people, he comes to Rehoboth seasonally and part-time. When in Rehoboth, he stays at the residence of a friend and business partner at 46 Pennsylvania Avenue. Mr. Shanowski's legal residence is in Washington. I'm enclosing the property tax record that shows he claims a homestead deduction there. Thank you in advance for protecting the integrity of elections in Rehoboth Beach. Sincerely, John Welch, 315 Stokely Street. And he provided the same DC form that was provided in Mr. Patterson's challenge.
Basically, whatever was in his document is similar to what's in Mr. Patterson's document. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, if appropriate, if we can hear Mr. Szuznowski, please. Edward.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, everything I've included in the written response, and I have nothing else to add at this time.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Well,
Do you want to read it just so that
Can we ask
public can
Can we
hear?
ask Ed a question?
sure, but
Absolutely.
I think we should probably, either you should read it or I can read your response, if you don't mind, just so the public hears it too,
Well,
because I think that's important.
and I don't mind that, but we're lopsided there because he's responding to something that nobody else has heard. And is that fair, kind of a thing?
All right,
Maybe-
so I
maybe-
shouldn't read
maybe-
it, so he should have an opportunity to respond to
I
what
don't
was
know,
said.
maybe if
in
they would
my
approve,
opinion,
approve a summary or something by the
You've
attorney.
read a written response of the complaint. I've provided a response to that. I mean, I think that's fair. You all have the information. You're the ones making the decision. If you'd like me to do more, I'm happy to, but that's how I was looking at it.
All right, and I will take it from the perspective of, I have read his response, and, you know, I read through this, and I believe that this gentleman is domiciled in the city of Rehoboth Beach.
Well, and Ed, I want to thank you for writing. We received that, I guess, 2 hours ago or something, so, you know, hopefully most of us have had time to read it. I guess the one thing I just wanted to confirm, because I read it some time ago before this meeting, is you indicated that you pay, I believe, your Delaware federal and state taxes from using the residence at 46 Pennsylvania. Is that correct? So
And your driver's license is 46 Pennsylvania?
Correct. And just to clarify, I think it was mentioned that it's in the name of a friend. It's in a trust to which I am also a grantee, a trustee, executor, and beneficiary of. So it's not just in someone individual name, that property.
Well, I'd like to maybe address this first, because it certainly gave me a pause. I take every complaint or challenge very seriously. And for those that don't know, part of the complaint was that Ed owns a property apparently in Philadelphia and one in DC, and so people are questioning where his true residency and his domiciliary is. The one thing, the Philadelphia thing doesn't give me any pause at all. The Rehoboth thing, yeah, I'd like some more proof, if you will, about domicile, but I'm going to take your word in the end on how you just answered me and in your letter. The DC thing with the homesteading thing gave me the greatest pause, frankly, because in the form where you have to apply for the homestead exemption, you have to sign as an owner. You can't designate a management company to sign for you. And you've got to certify that indeed you are domiciled in the state of Delaware, or in the state of DC, or non-state, whatever it is. District of Columbia. And it even has requirements for domiciliary that you've got to take certain actions. You've got to change your driver's license over and all that. And this is very hard looking at some of you out there saying this, but I'm trying to apply the same criteria to Ed as I did to everybody else. When it comes to the DC situation, at the best, it's sloppiness. Would you like me to? No, I'm just telling you my feeling. At the best, I think it's sloppiness for not changing it or whatever, and at the worst, it's fraud. I don't have any way to judge. when it comes to trying to apply the same criteria to Ed as everybody else. I'm looking at the voter registration card. I'm looking at the property ownership card. I do have a little pause there in that the voter registration card says he's an owner of property at 200 Laurel and he's an owner of property at 46 Pennsylvania Avenue. And we know that that's not true. It does, however, indicate that Perry, he says, is the property holder, the freeholder, but he has checked off that he's a permanent resident. So again, applying those criteria, I think I have to vote to confirm them.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, if I can get a motion and a second.
I move approval of Edward Szyznowski as a candidate for commissioner in the city of Rehoboth Beach
Resident or non-resident?
as a resident.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Edward Szyznowski as a resident commissioner. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Let's see, we can move right into, thank you, Edward. Thank you all the commissioners for being here. Thank you all for running. I hope it's a fruitful summer for everybody. And I suggest that you all get out and get to know everybody you can. The commissioner comments, I have none.
I have a couple.
Please.
And it's just reflecting on some things that have been in the news in just the last couple of days that have potential implications for us. And that is that several of our neighboring beaches have been closed down in recent days because of high nutrient bacterial counts. And so one, I want to commend our public works for staying on top of stormwater runoff situations, but also to point out the critical importance of us investing in what happens to our stormwater. When we have these continuous heavy rains, there is a lot of bacteria going out into the ocean. And if we don't have really up-to-date filter systems for our stormwater, beaches get closed. They're being tested twice a day by the state. And the worst headline at this time of the year that our city can get, or one of the worst, would be our beaches are closed because the water's dirty. So congratulations to our city for keeping ours open and just for us to continue to note that. The second item also reflects on a really disturbing article in the news just a day or two ago, and that is that an organization that is paying close attention, nonpartisan, to climate change is predicting that in order for Delaware to keep our coastal communities safe and dry from seawater rise would cost $9 billion to build appropriate seawalls. The state budget is only $4.5 billion. So just a note there that as we continue to all work together as a community in comprehensive planning for the next 10 years that we pay close attention to climate change and the implications for our community in the years ahead. Thank you.
And you know, those type of seawalls, they have those up and down in some of the New Jersey beaches already, because the same thing's been happening to them. And they've been doing this for like 20 years because I don't know that they were thinking about climate change, but they were thinking about saving the property that was up on the beach.
Right.
But that is going on in a lot of different places. Thank you. Sure, please give your name.
Susan Gay, 316 Central Club Drive, and more importantly, Vice Chair of the Planning Commission. Dick, thank you for bringing that up. And actually, just this morning, we scheduled the first CDP workshop, and in fact, it's going to be on climate change and sea level rise for
Great.
Saturday, July 20th.
Very good.
So more information will be coming out, but we just set that up today. So thanks.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Any other?
A couple comments. My comments are relative to citizen comment. At the bottom of the agenda, you noticed that the mayor had changed upon recommendation to putting citizen comment like it used to be in the old days. I just wanted to give you feedback that I hear this is working very good. I think it's working very well. The one thing that's missing for me, now maybe it was an omission on this agenda, but there is no citizen comment for non-agenda top items on this agenda. And so I'm wondering if it was just an omission. Okay, so that's fine. And then the last thing also with citizen comment is we used to have citizen comment at the beginning. And I just want to reiterate that I know you moved it to the end, but when we had this original conversation about going back and letting the members of the public talk after each agenda topic, I did give a compliment to the mayor that I thought that citizen comment on non-agenda topics at the beginning of the agenda was a worthwhile thing, so they didn't make them have to stay through the whole meeting. So I just wanted to reiterate that rather than, that's it.
So you're suggesting maybe to have upfront citizen comment on non-agenda items?
If we can get them to,
30 seconds? Just kidding.
well,
Just
no,
kidding.
no, I guess I'm suggesting that the chair has to make sure that if they're talking about an agenda item, that they need to stop and present it during the agenda topic so that we're doing it in the proper sequence. But if it has to do with a non-agenda topic, let them speak early. Something to think about. Thank you.
I'll work with Ann on that language. Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Just a few, the future meetings. Again, we've got our workshop on July 8th. I'll come back to you. July 8th, and as we just mentioned, we're going to probably have Ann will schedule a special meeting just after our July workshop to focus on the path forward to the dock. That'll be on the workshop agenda, but the special meeting will just be for a vote if we vote to move forward. And then we have a regular meeting, July 19th. And then, as the city manager mentioned, on June 27th, which is this week, next Thursday? Is that next Thursday? Our rate study group will give their presentation on their suggestions as we move forward from the rate study. They've done a phenomenal job. They've come up with a lot of details, and it should be very interesting. And we'll have that meeting. I believe that's at 9 o'clock on the 27th.
Yes.
And the public is welcome to that as well.
Mayor, what are you intending after that June 27th meeting? In other words, will there be at least one or two subsequent meetings before we go for a vote on anything?
Well, I've given that some thought, and I would say, one or two. I think what they've done is very comprehensive. I think this is very important for the commissioners to have that in front of them. And I think if the public comes, that's great too. But I think also it's good to have it in front of the commissioners, so the commissioners, as they walk around town or they speak to other residents, they can pass along the information. But then for us to have another meeting or so with the public, whether it's on workshop agenda or regular meeting agenda, and so that the interim rates that we've already approved will go into effect July 1st, with the idea that we can take some time to go over these new updated amounts and numbers. And if so, we approve those for the next quarter, so that it's not we're looking to get this done in the next 5 or 6 days after that. So, yes, discussion.
My point will be that I think this is so complex that we need to get the word out to the members of the public, and we need to think about it ourselves, that I would not be willing to vote on it at the very next meeting, for instance.
No,
So
I don't see that either.
I think we could probably gauge after the 27th to know whether we need one or two or whatever.
I mean, my hope would be that we can vote on this prior to Labor Day, so that the implementation would be approximately for the next quarter, which is October 1st. And I hope that works with the committee and the city manager staff.
And then I just would like to reiterate that I would hope this commission takes up this election topic and create a better process for vetting everybody, including this type of thing that I've mentioned over the years. You know, if this residency, non-residency is so important, I believe we need a better formalized process, not just for what we did tonight, but for change of residency. We've had commissioners before move out of town where they were a designated resident and then they become a non-resident. And I think they actually had to step down. This is before our time. But we need a process. We need a process on how to handle something like that.
Well, I would think that, again, the same kind of self-certification that you do on this petition is, if you're moving out of town, I would expect someone to say, hey, I'm moving out of town, so I've got to step down. Just like if someone moves out of town or sells their property, that they can no longer vote in Rehoboth. But, you know, some of those things take a little bit of time. But I would think as a commissioner, you would feel that you do that. You mention it to somebody, or somebody's going to see you on the street. We've got plenty of people that watch everything that we do. So, you know, it's a small community. And so if you don't know for a fact, I'm sure somebody you know knows. Sorry, that's just a little sidestep. If there's nothing else but you, please. That's all right. Take your time. Would you like some water?
And I own 503 Stokely, it's the extended across the street from elementary school. And so I wanted to ask about two things. One, first, Sharon, and
Can you move right up to the microphone? Yeah, that's perfect. Like you're singing in a concert.
I want to thank Sharon and Chief Banks. They stopped by my house yesterday to address an issue that I'm having. And although we came to a resolution, I don't know that we came to a satisfactory fix to the problem. So I didn't realize that you're not allowed to put flowers along the line of the street. And I did that, and one of the police officers stopped me, well, you know, after I was done. And so I filed the appropriate application, and it was denied. And my concern is not that I'm not removing the flowers. I've already started, so I'm going to do that. It's that there is parking happening on my lawn. And what happens is it creates huge divots in the lawn, as you guys I'm sure know. And then the grass grows up a little bit, and people trip and fall, and there's a safety hazard. Additionally, if people are parking on my lawn, it forces the kids who go to the elementary school, 600-ish children, and the 4 that I have at my home, to walk in the street. They can't walk on the lawn. We don't have sidewalks there, and I think Sharon said there's not likely to ever be sidewalks there. It's just not a high priority on the infrastructure. And so I'm wondering if you can help me come up with something that does work. The chief of police said that, you know, it's kind of a gray area. Can people park on your lawn? I don't know that that looks very nice. I mean, we're a lovely little village, and putting trucks and cars on somebody's front lawn seems kind of odd to me. But more importantly, and I took notes because I didn't want to mention it, I can't really maintain my lawn if I have trucks parking there or cars parking there on a regular basis. So in addition to the divots, now I've got a maintenance issue. If there are cars and trucks there on the day that my man comes to mow, he can't mow, and so there's high grass by the following week. And it's also expensive. I've got to resod constantly. I'm out there, and Evan just left. Darn, he lives right next door to me. He sees me out there constantly. I'm out there all the time trying to keep the lawn up. So perhaps I could put a sign up. Perhaps you could put a no parking sign up. Stokely Extended does not really lack for parking. We are a very small street. We have 100-foot lots. So there's not a ton of residents. I myself have 8-car parking in my driveway. So that was one thing. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is a totally separate topic. There's a lot of standing water around the construction of the elementary school, and I'm wondering if that might cause some mosquito and sanitary issues. So if the commission has some ideas for me, I would love to hear them, but I think I still have a problem.
Okay, well, thank you. In the second issue, I'll ask the city manager to maybe speak with the engineer to go to about the school. As far as the property goes, is that property, her property go to the street?
City property.
Yeah, see, if you look at your plot of your property, it's very similar to many different streets that we have in Rehoboth that do not have sidewalks. Like, for example, on Columbia Avenue and on Henlopen, an awful lot of the space that people have taken for driveways or put grass on it is city property. And that grass up against the road, I think, and we'll have to check the property line, is not your property. And so technically, because many of our streets are permit parking only, people could park. And I wouldn't be surprised to see July 4th or July 3rd, people will be parking in front of your house. But it's, what I would suggest, and maybe the other commissioners have some, is to maybe work with the building and licensing and to put some kind of a fence, if they allow it, at the end of your property, not at the street.
10 feet back.
10 feet back.
Julie, it's not so much that I care about having flowers there. I don't care about that. I care about the fact that we have people walking up and down that street to stay off the street, and it's not really level. As long as I'm on record, I've contacted my homeowners,
Yep.
Policy about it. To me, it now is a known hazard, and so now it's a known hazard for you guys. So I think now we're sharing.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that comes up frequently in the city is, and it depends on who's speaking, but a lot of people on the south side of Rehoboth think that everybody on the north side of the Rehoboth should have sidewalks and curbs. And I think some of the people on the south side of Rehoboth think that maybe Schoolview should have the same. But as some people have mentioned, I doubt if those are things that are going to happen anytime soon. But what I would suggest is, unfortunately, that first 10 feet from the street, you do have your grass, and I appreciate you taking care of it, but trucks will be parking there because it's not your property.
What, solutions that, for example, people on Columbia Avenue and Henlopen Avenue is they've demarcated their property with pavers.
Yeah.
And then towards the street, they've made a parking pad of gravel. And that may be what you'll have to do to avoid having the potholes and so forth.
You have to work with the
You
city
have to
manager on
file
that.
the same application that you did.
Yeah, and that way, it's not grass that you're dealing with, it's a parking pad that's essentially, gravel or something like that. Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Good,
Thank you.
excuse me, Walter. Please move up to the microphone. Thank you.
Good, 1 Grove Street and one of the 6 in the field. I'm actually here ahead of the 27th, June 27th presentation that the very hardworking utility rates working group is preparing for you, because I've attended most of their meetings, and those which I've been unable to attend, I've been watching on the video. And subsequent to that, I've done a little research because my background is in economics, and I find it just a really interesting issue of equity. But I have a proposal to help some of the residents in an age where it seems there are just a lot of expenses in the city. We're faced, of course, as of the 1st of next month, 50% rise in property taxes, this additional $25 fixed amount for the refuse collection, minor as it is, to a proposal, after looking at what some other jurisdictions do, to make a distinction in Rehoboth for water and wastewater rates, which would be a new proposal, that commercial users pay double per 10,000 gallons or whatever.
Can I hold you up right there? I would suggest that this is something you propose to the rate study group.
I mean, I've spoken about it with several of them, and they have initially were open to all sorts of ideas as to how to raise we do need to raise the water and wastewater rates in light of the $47 million outfall and other things. But if I could it's just a proposal that we define mega users who are commercial enterprises, hotels.
And that's exactly what they're doing.
Okay.
And so I would wait to see those presented.
I will acknowledge in this town, because you have condo buildings as an example, where some of those residing in the building are purely residential. Others could be investors who bought condo units and are renting them out. But for anyone who's a hotel or a restaurant or an investor, that water bill is a tax-deductible business expense. So it seems to me it might be an opportunity to have what other jurisdictions have had. Mega users, you can call them commercial users, have a different water rate, often double what residential users have. It's just a proposal, something I'd like you to be open to, because the ongoing discussion and also the worry, in speaking to a lot of my neighbors, we were told there'd be these interim rates from April 1st through June 30th. Now you're saying those won't actually go into effect until the July 1st till September 30th period? Is that actually the case now?
Yep. If you,
Rates won't rise for the April 1st to...
if you have a 1.5 inch meter or higher, those do, because those interim rates go monthly.
Right.
And that's for like
Are most
10% of the users.
Right, 113. I understand there are actually 113
Yes.
customers who have pipes 1.5
Yes.
inch to 4 inch.
Large, yes.
And I've learned a tremendous amount attending the meetings, and I think there are a lot of issues. They're doing a great job. Kevin Williams is extremely experienced, and he worked for a massive plant in the DC area. But it's just something I'd like all of you to think about ahead of this presentation as to whether we do what other jurisdictions have decided is more equitable. For those who can deduct the water bill from their taxes as a business expense, they pay more than residential users. I can't deduct my water bill from my federal taxes, state taxes, or anything else. So I appreciate it. And my suggestion would be, instead of this 30% and 60% hikes for residential customers, we moderate it to maybe 10% on water and 20% on wastewater. This would be offset by the additional amount paid by what I call the mega users.
Those rates are already in place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Brittingham.
Thank you. The young lady that spoke earlier, we could not hear in the back. Did she give an address?
Which one?
503.
503 Stokely.
Extended.
I'll tell you, I came from Rehoboth Elementary School, the big school, and came down the street and pulled over. No pictures were shown, but I stopped and told the lady my name was Walter and that I lived on the other side of town. This is at Stokely Street, right across from the little school that's going to be torn down in about a week and a half. And that's two 12-foot travel lanes and the shoulder on one side, and she's up on the opposite side of the street. And she was planting, had planted. I don't know if the bushes were there at the time, but there was flowers all the way down, right up to the edge of the roadway, similar to the property across from me on Hamilton Avenue at 114, big yellow house. Like so many places in Rehoboth, that the city has authorized plantings to the edge of the street, irrigation and all. And I explained to the lady that notwithstanding that it was a problem, a frustration to me and a problem within the city, but it was imminent that there was a 12-foot travel lane and then a shoulder which was not full. And she was probably going to have problems because with the school being torn down, the trucks pulling out of there, the demo is near the bus exit, and she might think about it. She said that the city manager was coming by, and so I took some pictures. I didn't bring them. I didn't know that it was going to be a discussion point. She'd never get to a discussion point. But nonetheless, then she said the city manager, she didn't know what day she was coming. But this is the kind of stuff that you all get into, excuse me, some of you get into. I saw Mr. Parise and Mr. Coons as commissioner, and Mr. Mayor Cooper at the time come across the street to my neighbors, allowing plantings to the edge of the roadway. What's going on here is wrong. It should not be allowed to come in like this. We do not need to have discussions about water at the school area. We have two huge sedimentation ponds that we don't need out there. The water is a separate issue, and this should not come up like this, and the plantings should not be allowed here.
Great. Thank you. Is that it?
Response to her.
Walter, you're pretty close to your 3 minutes.
No, ma'am. No, sir.
Yes, sir, you are.
We have plenty of time.
This meeting is adjourned.